that her responsibility, someone who knows the pain. And this is what I admire about volunteers with MAD, some of the staff members with MAD, like Aziza. You all have felt the pain, but you've made this pain and transition into it being your power and your message of keep going. And with this, our keynote speaker today is Erin Crawford-Bowers. She, for 8 years, has spent her life volunteering with MAD. She's also a survivor. Listen to this: an executive board member, law enforcement advocate, Walk Like MAD team captain, obviously a guest speaker. Over the years, she has raised no chump change here, $10,000 for MAD South Texas, and continues to volunteer her time. Yeah, can you give a round of applause for that? Give a warm welcome, please, to Erin Crawford-Bowers to the podium.
Thank you so much for the
We got Kleenex, we're good.
Yeah, okay, good deal. Jack, there, read your notes if that's okay with you, okay? Awesome, good deal. Well, thank you for the warm introduction. Hello, good morning, everyone. Like I said, my name is Erin Crawford-Bowers, and I'm an advocate for Mothers Against Drink Driving. You know, as I look around the room this morning and was meeting with a lot of you guys that y'all are coming in, it just makes me think all of the joy that it brings to me for you guys to be here today to celebrate all of the success that y'all have had. You know, with all the hard work that you've done in your communities to combat under the influence driving, I think about how proud your parents must be. You know, from the day you graduated from the academy to today, as a mom, I understand that burden. I know what it's like, right, to be concerned and all of that. So, in the spirit of reflection, like Henry, we did not plan this, but like Henry said, I want you to just take a moment, everybody just pause for a second, and I want you to think about your mom's voice. It's saying to you, I love you. I want you to think about your dad's voice, saying, I'm proud of you. Right? That's a very distinct sound that everyone has the privilege of having, to know exactly what it sounds like when your mom looks you in the eye and says, I love you, or your dad looks you in the eye and says, God, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job. And I know for a fact there's got to be a lot of proud parents from this room, right? You guys do so much for our community. You have the heart of a servant, and that really is what makes the difference. And, you know, I think back to when I was preparing this speech, I think back to like my childhood. And one of the things that I've always been like is like, ooh, choose me, send me, I want to go. Use me, Lord, that's where I want to be. And to do what you all do, that's exactly what you have to be like. Choose me, right, to go protect our community. Send me to risk my life every time I show up for roll call and put on my uniform. That exactly is what a true servant is like. Though for me, I have to say, gotta be honest, right? I didn't choose to be so passionate about this epidemic, nor did I want to be an advocate for MAD. Sorry, I didn't. You know, it wasn't, my story is not heroic like each one of yours in this room. You see, my life started out pretty normal. I was born on December 19th, 1984, down in Brazoria, Texas. I had a mom. My mother was a flower shop owner and a local artist in town, very well known. My father, Joe Allen Crawford, was a general contractor, and he was also known as the sheetrock man, still is to today. My brother, Guy Jonathan Crawford, on the other hand, had spent 14 years of his life as the only child. And I'm sure, as all of you can imagine, he didn't want a sibling, you know, like no interest. He's been the only child the whole time. And so he didn't want a sibling, but if he got one, he really wanted a brother. That didn't work out either. And then the other part to that too was he did not want to share his birthday. Come hell or high water, didn't want to share his birthday. And unfortunately for him, on his 14th birthday, we were in the hospital. And because I was supposed to come that day, but luckily for him, I was 2 days late. So at least he got that one little thing, although we did always have to share birthday cake after that. I'm sure we have some birthday siblings that understand that. No? Yes? Okay. You guys are a tough crowd today. We need to loosen up a little bit. Jeez Louise. Okay. So the first 6 months of my life, though, was very uneventful. You know, my parents were adjusting to having a newborn. My brother was trying not to, you know, put me under the water or whatever was going on. You know, I don't remember. Thank God I have no memory of that. But that was it, right? Like, my life story was just like everybody else's up until that point. And so on June 22nd of 1985, my dad had just finished this big general contracting job, so my whole family had gotten together from all over Texas, people from East Texas, Houston, San Antonio, all that, to go have dinner together that night. And so then when we were leaving, everybody was kind of getting in their separate cars, going their separate ways, and my brother ended up catching a ride home with our cousin, and then my parents had to make a stop, so my dad got in the driver's seat, my other cousin got behind him in the back driver's seat. Then my mom was in the back passenger seat, and then because, it's 1985, right? They put me in this little rinkety metal thing, I guess it was, they called it a car seat, that's debatable. Put me in the front seat facing forward because, it was 1985. We all made bad decisions, I'm sure, in the 80s that we wouldn't do today. Yeah, don't do that. And so, we were driving home. My parents had went and ran their errands, and we got on this dark country road, no headlights. All you could really see, from what I've been told, was like flow of the moon, and there were headlights coming at us. And this guy was driving erratically, and my dad kind of started to move off to the shoulder a little bit to give him some room, because he could tell something was going on. That was weird. My mom, on the other hand, who always wore a seatbelt, threw off her seatbelt and lunged in front of me. That way bathing went down. Well, then before we knew it, we were hit head on. My dad passed away instantly, from what I've been told. My mom, if she would have survived, she would have been completely paralyzed, but she ended up succumbing to her injuries about 2 minutes later. My cousin was, let's see how old she was. She was probably about 19. She was really young. She broke every bone in her body. She spent over a year in the hospital, just trying to survive. And then for me, I was life-flighted to Galveston UTMB. I had a broken arm, a broken leg, had some damage to my spine, and they didn't know if I was going to make it that night. The story was, they were told I was not going to make it that night. And so, about an hour after the crash, my brother's at home, right, with his cousin, just hanging out, doing whatever you do in 85. I have no idea. There's no cell phones back then, so I don't even know what they did back then, but whatever. And so they're just hanging out, and he's like, God, it's like 10 o'clock. Everything in Brazoria closes at 9. Like, where are my parents at? Like, what's going on? And then he got the call from the hospital and said, just come up here. And they wouldn't tell him anything, And in that moment, he just knew. And then when he walked into the hospital, it was about a 30-minute drive, and he saw my grandfather, who was in the Navy, who never cried, was bawling hysterically. And then he just knew that his life was, forever changed. And, back in 85, we didn't have the support. We didn't have the resources. We didn't go to therapy. We didn't have a legal advocate. The person who killed my parents spent 3 weeks in jail. Was it 3 weeks? There you go, whatever. So we had zero support. And my brother, when he would tell the story of the day our parents died, he would say it like it was yesterday. He would talk about it all the time, like it just haunted his memories. And so even though my brother was not physically in the car that day, that night my brother was killed. The person he was supposed to be, the big brother he was supposed to be to me, he never got that opportunity. And so he did live though, but on June 4th, 2021, so it took him 35 years, 11 months, and 18 days for him to finally succumb to his injuries. And we lost him. But after the crash, my mom's sister, Jeannie Loxton, and her husband, Delbert Loxton, ended up giving up everything. My adopted mom, she had just gotten a job at ExxonMobil, working in their corporate office. They didn't have any kids. They had their pilot's license. They went diving, they went skydiving, they did all the fun stuff you don't do without kids, and then within an instant, they had 2. And so that night, after leaving, I was at Galveston UTMB for 3 nights, and then she packed a bag, not only kept us in the same town, because that's what my parents wanted. They wanted us to stay in that small town, in small town Texas. They didn't want us raised in Houston. And so she gave up the job, she gave up everything, and she took over my mom's life essentially. She lived in the same house, she slept in the same bed. How she did that in her dead sister's bed, like, I have no idea. I have so much respect for this saint of a woman because she truly is amazing. And then my adopted father, Delbert, he was a Houston police officer. He served for 44 years before he finally retired back in 2011. He was in the investigative unit for car crashes. He really is my hero. You know, he's done a lot of really good work. And then today, I live in the Hill Country. I have an amazing job as a director of franchise ops with Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. I'm a wife. I have 2 amazing children. Like, I'm very blessed. I'm very, very blessed. And I spend a lot of time, you know, sharing my story. And so I'm so appreciative of MAD for giving me a voice. You know, one of the things is, like I said, I haven't always been involved with MAD. And I realized about 9 years ago, I was talking to some of my coworkers, and at that point, I had worked at Wyndham for 10 years, a long time. I started when I was in college. And I realized that nobody knew. Nobody knew that, you know, my parents were killed. Nobody knew I was adopted. Nobody knew I wasn't supposed to survive that night. If it wasn't for my mother and her heroic actions, I wouldn't even be standing here today in front of you all. Nobody knew, because I'm such a positive person. Like, I don't like to talk about the negative stuff. Nobody likes to talk about the negative stuff. It just brings the mood down, you know? That's just not who I am. And so I started volunteering with MAD, and that's where I had the opportunity to really get my voice back and be able to make sure this story no longer went untold, because that was important to me. You know, and one of the things about my mom, for years, I carried around a lot of guilt. You know, why did she take off her seatbelt? Why would she put herself in danger when she knows what was about to happen, you know? And then 9 years ago, I had a son, and I came to the realization exactly what I would have done too. I'm sorry, Jackie. I would have done the exact same thing, you know, and put myself in harm's way for my children any moment at any time. You know, when I gave birth to our son, I really wanted to show our appreciation of my parents and everything they had done. And so what we decided to do was to name him Crawford. And he's actually here with me today in the audience. Crawford is a big supporter of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. He's also the co-captain of our Walk Like Mad team, Crawford's Legacies. He also helps me with all our digital content. That's why he's filming today. He's my young hip kid. He keeps me, you know, hip, kind of, not really, just kidding. Not a cool mom. But he's the reason why, like Henry had said, we raised over $10,000, and I give full credit to him. We wouldn't have done it without him. He's really, really amazing. But don't get me wrong, you know, even though I'm so positive, that there are hard days. You know, I've spent many years in trauma therapy as retelling the most traumatic part of my life over and over again. It can be exhausting, really exhausting. But on days like that, I have my son. He's my spirit, my biggest supporter, and the person in my life that makes it all worth it. So to my son, I love you so much, and I am so proud of you. And I want you to always remember my voice. So I say that to him often as I can. You see, the hardest part for me, the one thing that keeps me up at night, is the never knowing. Never knowing if they're proud of me. Never knowing what their voices sound like. If I heard them speak today, I wouldn't recognize their voice. I have no idea. So my mission in life is to make sure that no one ever else has to know what it's like to get married without your dad, or to have your babies without your mom, or to lose your only sibling to a rope hung around their neck. All of this due to someone making a choice to drive under the influence. I could not be on this mission without the support of MAD, but especially without the support of each one of you. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I thank you for risking your life. I know I've lived it with my dad, my adopted father. I get it. I totally get it. I have so much respect for you, especially being a police officer in today's society. Get out of here. You know what I mean? It is tough damn job. Excuse my language, sorry. It's a hard job, and I really, really appreciate it, and I just want you each to know that. So it's an honor to be standing here with you all today. enough of all this. Let's celebrate. I am super excited. I have seen some of the previews for the awards. Luckily, Jackie showed me some of that stuff. We're getting out a lot of awards. It's going to be super fun. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Henry.